We tend to think of stories as just entertainment, things we tell for fun. But what if a story could be a tool? A tool powerful enough to rebuild a reality that had been completely shattered. Well, today we're going to break down an ancient rabbinic tale that did exactly that. It acted like a symbolic suture, stitching closed a wound so deep it had torn the very fabric of a civilization. This is way more than a history lesson. It's a look at the blueprint for a complete psychological rebirth.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the year 70 CE, and Roman legions have just burned the Second Temple in Jerusalem to the ground. Now, you have to understand, for the Jewish people, this wasn't just a military defeat. It was apocalyptic. The absolute center of their spiritual and symbolic universe was just gone, wiped out, leaving this massive, terrifying void.
To really get a handle on this kind of trauma, there's a useful concept from the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan. He called it the real. The real is what's left when all of our symbols, our language, our stories, when they all just break down. It's that raw, overwhelming, unspeakable experience that you can't put into words. It's the moment the map of your world is set on fire and you're just left staring into a meaningless abyss. That was the wound.
So what did it really mean to lose the temple? To get why the solution was so brilliant, we first have to appreciate the sheer catastrophe of the problem. This was so much more than losing a building.
Think of the temple as what some thinkers would call a master signifier. It's like the keystone in an arch, the one central piece that holds everything else in place. It gave meaning to everything: law, ritual, identity, their entire relationship with God. So when that keystone was pulled out, the whole arch collapsed. The entire system of meaning just unraveled, sparking this massive collective crisis. The question wasn't just, well, what do we do now? It was, who are we? What does anything even mean anymore?
And here's where things get really fascinating. How do you rebuild from that? Well, they didn't rebuild with bricks and mortar. They rebuilt with a story specifically designed to act as a suture, to stitch that gaping wound in reality closed.
The early rabbis proposed a solution that was so radical it's hard to overstate. They basically shifted the entire foundation of their world. Authority would no longer be tied to a physical place, the temple, but to a portable, indestructible text, the Torah. The hero wasn't the priest anymore, it was the sage, the scholar. And the whole logic of their world flipped, from one based on physical presence to one based on interpretation and, most importantly, on lack.
So, the story we're about to dive into, the story of Rabbi Akiva, is something much more powerful than a simple biography. You could call it a foundational fantasy. Now, when I say fantasy, don't think of make-believe or something that's not real. Think of it more like a fundamental script, a narrative that's deliberately built to teach an entire community how to live, how to desire, and how to find meaning in this brand new post-apocalyptic world. And the way this story works its magic is just brilliant. It all centers on two characters, Rabbi Akiva and his wife Rachel. And their journey doesn't begin with power or wealth, but with a profound and incredibly motivating sense of, well, lack.
So on one hand, you've got Akiva. He's an illiterate shepherd. He is basically the poster child for lack. No knowledge, no status, no money. And then there's Rachel, who comes from the complete opposite world of incredible wealth. But she sees something in Akiva, this hidden potential. She marries him totally against her father's wishes, and her father, furious, disowns them. He makes this solemn vow that they will never get a single dime from him. This one act plunges them into absolute poverty, and it's this extreme state of lack that becomes the engine for the entire story.
Fueled by this new reality, and by Rachel's unwavering belief in him, Akiva makes this wild decision. He leaves. He goes to completely immerse himself in the study of the Torah for 12 years.
So after those 12 years, Akiva comes home. And as he approaches, he overhears a neighbor berating his wife Rachel, saying she's been abandoned. But Rachel's response is just incredible. She says if he would listen to me, he would sit and study for another 12 years. This isn't just a wife being supportive. In the logic of the story, this is the crucial symbolic authorization he needs. It transforms what looks like abandonment into a sacred, endorsed mission.
And that's exactly what he does. He literally turns around and goes back for another 12 years. For a total of 24 years, Akiva goes through this profound process of alienation. He's shedding his old identity completely to be remade by the new symbolic order, the world of the Torah. After 24 years, he finally comes back for good. But he's not Akiva the shepherd anymore. He is Rabbi Akiva, the single greatest sage of his generation. And he returns with an absolutely mind-boggling entourage, 24,000 disciples.
This massive, triumphant return is the setup for the story's climax, and this is way more than just a family reunion. It's a showdown between the old world, the world of wealth and family ties, and the new world of symbolic authority that Akiva now embodies.
In the years Akiva was away, Rachel's father, Ben Kalbasavua, has become full of regret. He hears that this legendary new sage has come to town, and he goes to seek his help. And in this perfect moment of dramatic irony, he wants this great sage to annul the very vow that started this whole thing, the vow he made against his daughter and her husband. He has absolutely no idea who he's talking to.
And this leads us to the absolute core question of the entire story. Which power is greater? Is it the old authority of the father, which is based on personal anger, on wealth, on lineage? Or is it the new authority of the sage, based on total mastery of the universal, impersonal law of the Torah?
Akiva, as this great sage, tests his father-in-law. He asks him, "Would you have made this vow if you knew the man would become a great scholar?" The father says, "Of course not." And in that moment, Akiva delivers the two most powerful words in the story, Anihu, I am he. With that, he's not just revealing his identity, he's declaring that he is the living embodiment of the law itself.
And as the ultimate legal authority, Akiva annuls the vow. This is such a profound symbolic victory. He proves, once and for all, that the father's personal, arbitrary word is powerless against the transcendent authority of the Torah. The old authority isn't violently destroyed, it's just superseded. It's replaced by a higher, more abstract power. The suture is complete. The new rabbinic order has triumphed. But the story doesn't just stop with one man's victory. Remember, this whole thing is a foundational fantasy. It's meant to be a blueprint, a repeatable model for the whole community's survival and its future.
What the story does is it codifies this clear three-step formula for creating the new rabbinic hero. Step 1, a woman's desire creates a structural lack. Step 2, a man fells that lack by totally immersing himself in the symbolic order of the Torah. And step 3, he returns completely transformed as a master of the law. And the text even tells us this formula works again. Akiva's own daughter does the exact same thing for another scholar, guaranteeing that this new project will continue.
And then comes the final, incredible moment. Akiva is at the peak of his power. His disciples try to push his wife Rachel, now in rags, away from him, but Akiva stops them. He turns to all 24,000 of them and says something radical. Mine and yours are hers. He's publicly acknowledging that all of his knowledge, all of his authority, everything he is, was founded on her desire. It all grew out of that void that she created, the void that he was compelled to fill.
Ultimately, the saga of Rabbi Akiva is this powerful demonstration of how narrative can literally shape our reality. It shows how a community, when faced with an unthinkable trauma, can tell itself a new story, a story that transforms a gaping wound not into a scar, but into the very source of its own rebirth and endurance. And you know, that really leaves us with a question for our own time, doesn't it? When our own worlds seem to collapse, what stories do we tell ourselves to heal them?